podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
The Two-Footed Podcast is brought to you by EPLindex.com and our presenting sponsor, Liberty Shield. Liberty Shield is a VPN provider. A virtual privacy network allows you to go online, change your location, access things you're geo-blocked from, while keeping your data safe. So, as an example, if you are a UK expat and want access to BBC iPlayer to watch Match of the Day, or ITV Hub, or all four, will you get that message that says this content is not available in your location? A Liberty Shield VPN gets you around that block, allows you to watch whatever you want on those services, while also keeping your data safe. And it goes further than that. It allows you to open up Netflix's entire library by just changing your IP address. Liberty Shield is the #1 rated VPN provider on Trustpilot with 5-star ratings across the board. So go to libertyshield.com right now, use the code EPL25 and get either the hardware package or the software package. The hardware package is a router that you plug into your existing router, and any item you want to change the IP address on, be it your phone or your television, you connect that to the new Liberty Shield router. All other items can remain connected to your existing router. There's also a software package which is instantly downloadable to your device and you can get using straight away. Again, libertyshield.com, EPL25 for 25% off at checkout. We're also brought to you by Home of Hopcroft, a giftware and homeware company located in Scotland but shipping worldwide. Check out homeofhopcroft.co.uk and do check out the EPL Index and Anfield Index shops, which you'll find on Etsy. Use the codes EPL10 or RED10 for 10% off at checkout. And lastly, do remember to check out A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. That podcast is on this feed before every Premier League match week. And then the EPL Roundtable, hosted by Kevin DeVries, on its own EPL Roundtable feed. So just search EPL Roundtable in your podcast device. And that's out after every match week. Now, on with the show. It's good, boys and girls. Two-Footed Podcast. Today is Monday. It is the 29th of July. Hope you're all well and having yourselves a pleasant day. Did you enjoy your weekend? Have you enjoyed the beginning of the Olympics? I think the football at the Olympics has been pretty decent standard so far. Over the weekend, we obviously had a round of games in both the men's and women's, so we'll catch up on them first. In the men's competition, United States beat New Zealand by 4-1. Mihailovic, Zimmerman, Busio and Aronson with the goals. Randall pulled back a late consolation for the Kiwis. Sildilia of Freiburg, the only goal scorer as France beat Guinea by 1-0. In Group B, this is such a strange group. Argentina beat Iraq by 3-1. Everybody expected that, despite Iraq's victory over the Ukraine. Almada put them 1-up. Hussein equalised just before half-time. Gunzo scored on 62. And then Ezequiel Fernandez wrapped it up on 85. But in the other game, not sure anyone called this, Ukraine beat Morocco by 2-1. Kriskiv scored on 22. Rahimi equalised in the penalty spot on 64. But Krasnodar scoring in the 98th minute to give Ukraine the win. And every team in that group is now on 3 points. I should have pointed out that in Group A, France have 6 points. The United States and New Zealand both have 3 points, and Guinea, unfortunately for them, with no points so far. In Group C, Spain beat the Dominican Republic by 3-1. Fermin Lopez scored. The Oca scored an equaliser for Dominican Republic, but Baena and Gutierrez scored to give Spain the win. And then Egypt, courtesy of Ahmad Koka, on the 11th minute, beating Uzbekistan by 1-0. Uzbekistan, the first team to be officially eliminated. They will play the Dominican Republic in their last game and hope to salvage something. But Spain and Egypt look like they're sailing through. In Group D then, Paraguay bounced back from their hammering at the hands of Japan to beat Israel by 4-2. Marcelo Fernandez opened the scoring. Israel pulled it level through Gandelman on 53. Julio Enciso scored to make it 2-1 Paraguay. Oscar Glosch scored to make it 2-2. But 2 goals in stoppage time, one from the ageless Fabian Balbuena and the second from Fernandez, gave Paraguay the 4-2 win. Japan beat Mali by 1-0. Yamamoto with the only goal, and that puts them top and guarantees them a spot in the knockouts. Paraguay with a draw over Mali should advance, but if Israel were to beat Japan because Japan can rest players, that could put Israel through. So still a lot to play for there. The last round of games are tomorrow in the groups. So in Group D, it's Paraguay, Mali, Israel, Japan. In Group C, it's Dominican Republic, Uzbekistan, Spain against Egypt. Group B has Ukraine versus Argentina and Morocco versus Iraq. Obviously, everything to play for in that group. And then in Group A, New Zealand, France, United States, Guinea. France looking a very strong bet to get through. I think United States are going to join them. I think it's going to be Argentina and Morocco from B. It's going to be Spain, and I think it'll be Egypt from Group C. Very likely to be Egypt. And then Japan and I think Paraguay out of Group D, which should be fun. That would set us up then with quarterfinals of France against Morocco, and I believe Argentina against USA, which would be pretty good. Then we would get Spain versus Paraguay and Japan versus Egypt. That could be quite good as a quarterfinal bracket. Then on the women's side, we also had a round of games over the weekend. Let's catch up on those quickly. In Group A, Colombia beat New Zealand by 2-0, and then Canada sprang the big upset, beating France by 2-1. In Group B, mental stuff going on. So the United States hammered Germany. That wasn't... The margin of victory was a bit of a surprise, but the fact that the USA won was not. USA, obviously, incredible pedigree at the international level. But Australia 6, Zambia 5 is bananas. Australia were 4-2 down at half-time, then went 5-2 down, and then came back to win 6-5. The final games in that group, I should give you the final games from Group A. It's New Zealand, France, Colombia, Canada. All to play for, really. We've got Canada on 6 points. Canada were deducted 6 points. So actually Canada are on 0 points. Canada are on 0 points. So Canada need to beat Colombia to go through. They could potentially still get in as a third place team, even with the win. But yeah, I forgot they were deducted 6 points for the drone spying thing, which is just mad. So despite winning both their games, they're on 0 points. Anyway, New Zealand, France, Colombia, Canada, we'll see how they play out. Those games are Wednesday. Australia, USA, Zambia versus Germany. Then in Group C, we got an upset as Japan, who were 1-0 down at the end of the 90 minutes, scored twice in stoppage time to beat Brazil 2-1. Spain beat Nigeria 1-0. Final games give us Brazil versus Spain and Japan versus Nigeria. And right now it does look like it'll be Spain and Japan going through automatically. As things currently stand, Brazil and Australia would be the teams going through as the best third place teams, but we'll see how the Canadians get on. After what they've done so far, I would expect them to beat Colombia, despite the fact that Colombia have been quite good. Right, that is the Olympics. What I wanted to do today, Phil Walker sent me this the other day, obviously, and I did it on Friday for the Premier League 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s. And then he asked me if I could do it for world football. And I thought to myself, that sounds like a nice, fun thing to do, but why not make it much more difficult on myself? So what I've done, and I'm going to do this over 2 parts, first part now, second part after the break, is I have put together teams of the decades for the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s. And we're going to have a bit of a knockout tournament. So we're going to go 50s versus 60s, 70s versus 80s, 90s versus 2000s, and 10s versus 20s. Then we'll go to break. Then we'll come back and we'll do semi-finals and a final. We'll do the winner of 50s, 60s versus the winners of 70s, 80s, and then the other bracket as well. Setting 1990s kind of the dawn of modern football, and everything else is for old fuckers like me. And how I'm going to do this is I'm literally just going to go through the teams I've picked, and I'm going to basically make a combined 11. And whoever has the most players in that combined 11 is the team that will advance, because it's the only way I could think of that was really fair. So we'll start with the 1950s. We've got Lev Yashin of Russia in goal, of the Soviet Union as it was. In defence, we have right back Jaume Santos, left back Nilton Santos, both Brazilians, obviously. At centre-back, I've gone Billy Wright, legendary English defender, and Hilderaldo Bellini, Brazilian central defender. Across the midfield, I've gone 4-4-2 for all of them, and I've had to use a bit of chicanery to get 1 or 2 players in, but it's my team, and I'll just stick with how I want it to be. So I've got Gorinchia on the right, Paco Gento on the left, Josef Bozic and Alfredo Di Stefano as my midfielders, Sander Koksic and Ferenc Puskás as my strikers. And I've done a few honourable mentions for each decade. Now, in later decades, I've got more, because my wheelhouse is sort of 1970 on, because 50s and 60s, it's very hard to find enough footage to fully judge players. So I've had to do with these, I've also had to do a bit of research and just look up certain things. I haven't seen a lot of these players. I've seen everybody at least once, but I wanted to just, clarify. My honourable mentions for the 1950s, Stanley Matthews, Raymond Coppa, and Juan Alberto Schiaffini of Uruguay. There's a load of others I could have mentioned, but I didn't want to get too far into the weeds. So that's my 1950s team. My 1960s team, I've gone with Pat Jennings in goal, Bertie Vogts at right back, Silvio Mazzolini, the Argentine, at left back, Franz Beckenbauer and Bobby Moore at centre back. In midfield, I've got George Best on the right and Gianni Rivera on the left, Bobby Charlton and Josef Masopust, the Czech midfielder, in my central midfield area. And then I've got Pele and Eusebio up front. And I've done the same thing here, where any player who bridges multiple decades, I'm only putting them in for 1 decade, largely just to showcase more players. Honourable mentions for this one, the original Luis Suarez, the Spanish one, Gordon Banks, Riva Sivori, Florian Albert, the Hungarian striker who had the unenviable task of kind of being the star in the post-Golden Magyars era, where they weren't nearly as good, but he was still outstanding. And That's it. Yeah, that's all I have for that one. So, Lev Yashin is the goalkeeper. Jalma Santos will be the right back, and Nilton Santos will be the left back in this combined 11. But Beckenbauer and Moore will be the two centre-backs. On the right wing, we've got Garrincha. Left wing, we're going to go with Gento. Midfield, it's Di Stefano and Bozic. Up front, it's going to be Pele and it's going to be Puskas. So it's a heavily 1950s combined 11 with Yashin, Santos, Beckenbauer, Moore, Nilton Santos, Garrincha, Di Stefano, Bozic, and Gento, and then Pele and Puskas. So the 1950s team is the one that advances, and the 1960s, unfortunately, have been eliminated. Now, 1970s. So in goal, I've got Dino Zoff, legendary Italian goalkeeper. I've got Carlos Alberto, the Brazilian, at right back. I've got Fischetti at left back, the Italian. Claudio Gentile and Daniel Passarella are the centre-backs. The midfield is, now again, some chicanery. Roberto Revellino I've had to play on the right. Johan Cruyff is on the left. Paul Breitner and Johan Neeskens in the middle of the park. Gerd Muller and Mario Kempes are my front two. My honourable mentions: Sepp Maier, the legendary German goalkeeper. Kevin Keegan, Oleg Blocken, Ruud Krul, Jairzinho, Marius Tesser, the French defender who I tried very hard to get in but couldn't in the end, and Teofilo Cubillas, the legendary Peruvian attacker. My 80s team: Dasiev, the Soviet goalkeeper, Bergamy at right back, Brema at left back, Baresi and Sharia at centre back. Two Italians. So three Italians in the back, four. The midfield: Maradona, Lothar Matthäus, Frank Rijkaard, and Zico. And then Platini off Van Basten. The honourable mentions: Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, Kenny Dalglish, Boniek, Hullet, Koeman, Belanov, Enzo Schifo, Socrates. I could have gone on, but didn't want to get too deep in the weeds. So let's go. Goalkeeper, I'm going to go Zoff. Right back, Alberto by a hair. Bergamy was better defensively, but we'll go with Alberto. Left back is going to be Fischetti. Centre back, I think I'm going to go Baresi and Passarella. Midfield: Diego, Lothar, Rijkaard, and Cruyff. In attack, I'm going Van Basten and I'm going Platini. So that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That gives me 1980s winning by 6-5. The combined 11 would be Zoff, Alberto, Baresi, Passarella, and Fischetti. Maradona, Matthäus, Rijkaard, and Cruyff. Van Basten with Platini just behind him. So the 1950s will play the 1980s in semi-final 1. No. 1990s I went with Peter Schmeichel in goal. There were other candidates, but I just feel like his longevity across the decade, like 92, he wins the Euros with Denmark. 99, he's part of the United treble winning team. And he's vital for both of them and every season in between. So I think on consistency basis, it is him. The defence, Lilian Thuram at right back, Paul McGrath and Jurgen Koller at centre back, and Maldini at left back. Right wing, Figo. Left wing, Michael Laudrup. Middle of the field, Keane and Zidane. And up front, Ronaldo and Roberto Baggio. My honourable mention list: Costa Curta, Irwin, Zammer, Rivaldo, Bergkamp, Hadji, Stoichkov, Romario, Batistuta, Desai, Shearer, Weah, Jaap Stam, Rui Costa, Steve McManaman, Ryan Giggs, and Roberto Carlos. That's a pretty strong list. Could have mentioned Angelo Peruzzi in there as well. He was probably the second best goalkeeper of that. Oh, well, Ollie Kahn would be worth mentioning, but I do have him in the 2000s honourable mention. So the 2000s team is Buffon. Defence is Zanetti, Cannavaro, Nesta, and Ashley Cole. Midfield, Ronaldinho and Kaká as kind of the wide players attacking midfielders. It's chicanery again. I've gone Vieira and Xavi as my midfield pair. And up front, I've gone with Henry and Totti. The honourable mentions: Steven Gerrard, Andrei Shevchenko, Paul Scholes, Wayne Rooney, Raul, Carlos Puyol, Andrea Pirlo, Clarence Seedorf, Edgar Davids, Iker Casillas, Petr Cech, Edwin van der Sar, Cafu, Ollie Kahn, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Pavel Nedved. I'd also like to throw in Juan Sebastian Veron and Juan Roman Riquelme as honourable mentions. Buffon would be the goalkeeper in a combined 11. Right back, for me, that's the two best right backs of all time. I would lean Zanetti because he could offer a bit more on the ball, even though Thuram was the better defender. McGrath over Cannavaro, Nesta over Kohler, Maldini over Cole. Figo or Ronaldinho? We'll go Dino. Figo was never the best player in the world, but Ronaldinho was, though not in as strong an era. Left wing, it's Laudrup. Keane over Vieira and Zidane over Xavi. Ronaldo over Henry and Baggio over Totti. So that gives me 7-4 for the 90s over the 2000s. Then we have the 2010s and the 2020s. So the 2010s, Manuel Neuer in goal, Philippe Lahm and David Alaba as the fullbacks, Marquinhos and Van Dijk as the centre-backs, Messi on the right, Iniesta on the left, Busquets and Toni Kroos as the double pivot, Suarez and Cristiano Ronaldo up front. Honourable mentions: Robin, Xabi Alonso, Ribery, Aguero, Tevez, Hazard, Zlatan, Lewandowski, Benzema, Chiellini, Bonucci, Sergio Ramos, the right-back version, not the centre-back version, Marcelo, Vincent Kompany, Luka Modric, Neymar, and Gareth Bale. And there's others as well for every decade, but I just didn't want to list every player. For the 2020s, I've got Alisson in goal. I've got Trent at right back and Theo Hernandez at left back. Ruben Diaz and Alessandro Bastoni as the centre backs. I'm not thrilled with Ruben Diaz, but it's not been the best. Like, Van Dijk is by far and away the best centre-back in the world, but I have him in for the 2010s because his best year came in 18-19 when, in my opinion, he put together the best centre-back season of all time. Midfield, I've got Salah on the right, Vinicius Jr. on the left, Rodri and De Bruyne as the midfield pairing. I have to have De Bruyne in a team. I know his better years might have been in the 2010s, but I have to have him in, so I've just shunted him. He's had some really good seasons since 2020 anyway, so I think it's fine. Up front, I've gone with Kane and Mbappe. Now, the most honourable mention is to Erling Haaland. Unfortunately, you're not better than Kane, you're not better than Mbappe, so that's just how it is. I haven't done a long list of honourable mentions for this decade because the decade is only 4 years old, 5 years old if you include 2020, and 4.5 years old. And I just couldn't be bothered, really. Is the truth of it. Right, combined 11. Neuer versus Alisson. I'm going to go Neuer, even though I think Alisson's best is better than Neuer's best. Neuer had the entire decade of greatness. Ali, I think he's had 6 years of being incredible, but I think Neuer's just got a little bit more longevity. I'm picking Trent over Lam. I don't care who it upsets. I'm picking Marquinhos over Diaz and Van Dijk over Bastoni, and I'm picking Alaba over Theo Hernandez. Messi over Salah. Busquets over Rodri. I'm inclined to go KDB over Toni Kroos. But Kroos does it in bigger games. I'm going to go with him. Left wing will be Iniesta. Suarez over Kane. Cristiano over Mbappe. So it's 10-1. Do you know what? Just to give the 2020s a little bit more love, I'll give them Alisson over Neuer. But it is still 9-2. It is heavily 2010s winning that one. So 2020 has been eliminated. So our semi-finals are set. It will be the 1950s versus the 1980s. And the 1990s versus the 2010s. Be back after the break with those semi-finals. See you after this. Right, welcome back. So, continuing with our little knockout tournament of teams of the decade. We start our first semi-final, 1950s versus 1980s. Again, that 1950s team, Lev Yashin, Jalma Santos, Billy Wright, Eldorado Bellini, Nilton Santos, Garrincha, Alfredo Di Stefano, Joseph Bozic, Paco Gento, Sander Coxes, and Ferenc Puskás. That 80s team, Dasiev, Bergamy, Baresi, Scirea, Brema, Maradona, Mateus, Rijkaard, Zico, Platini, and Van Basten. Right. Lev Yashin is the goalkeeper. I think we'll stick Jalma Santos at right back, Nilton Santos at left back. But the centre-backs will be Baresi and Scirea. It is Maradona over Garrincha. Lothar Matthäus over Di Stefano. Rijkaard over Bozic is razor thin, but I'm going to go with Rijkaard. I think the additional athleticism is the difference there. And I'll go Zico over Paco Gento. So big advantage in the midfield for the 1980s team. Up front, I'm picking Puskás over Platini. The question then is Van Basten or Sander Coxes. Now, Van Basten's case is pretty easy to make when you just go back and look at the body of work. 3 Ballon d'Ors, a absolute goal machine for Ajax, for Milan, and for the Netherlands. In the 80s, he was pretty unstoppable. You're talking from 83, 84 through to 89, 90, 29 and 32, 29 and 41, 39 and 31, 43 and 44. Moves to Serie A, misses a chunk of the season injured, but gets 8 in 19. 33 in 47, 25 in 42. That's pretty special. And obviously, he's more modern, so we've all seen a lot more of him. But when I look at the career of Sandor Kocsis, I just don't know how I can overlook him. Goal machine for Ferencváros, though that was largely in the 40s. And then just incredible for Honvéd. Went through Switzerland to get out of occupied Hungary and lands at Barcelona, and he's tremendous for them. But at international level, 75 goals in 68 games. And if I look at his career in the 40s, 24 and 15, 33 and 27, 49 in 29, 24 in 25, 46 in 31, 26 in 26, 15 in 23. Loses the year of his career as he's trying to get out of Hungary, but ends up in like I say, in Switzerland. Plays 11 games, scores 7 goals, goes to Barcelona, 10 and 15, 8 in 13. There's obviously some injuries in there that cause him to miss a lot of games, but like his international record is just sensational. Won multiple La Liga titles, won 3 Hungarian titles, won the Olympics, World Cup runner-up. Absolutely sensational. Now, his highest Ballon d'Or finish was 8th, which is a disgrace, but it is what it is. I'm inclined to go Kocsis, but does it matter? Let's see. 1, 2, 3. It doesn't actually matter because the 80s team have 6 and the 50s team have 4. So I'm going to pick Kocsis just to give them the additional boost. And because he didn't get picked over Pele, so we're going to go with him. But marching on to the final is the team of the 1980s. And in the final, they will take on the winner of 1990 versus 2010s. Schmeichel versus Neuer. I'm going to go for Neuer. Thuram over Lam. McGrath over Marquinhos, but Van Dijk over Kohler. Maldini over Alaba. Messi over Figo. Busquets over Keane, but Zidane over Cruz. I'm picking Laudrup over Iniesta. Michael Laudrup was the best player in the world for a couple of years. Iniesta, unfortunately, it's not his fault. Look at who he was playing in his own team with, an alien, but I'm picking Laudrup. Baggio or Cristiano is Cristiano, but R9 over Luis Suarez. That gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That gives us 6 from the 1990s team. And only 5 from the 2010s team. Neuer, Van Dijk, Busquets, Messi, and Cristiano. The controversial pick is Laudrup over Iniesta, I think. But I think Laudrup at his very peak was better than Iniesta. I think Laudrup at his peak was the best player in the world. And while Iniesta did have the Messi factor, I don't think anyone ever looked at Iniesta and thought, well, you're the second best player in the world, or you're the third best player in the world. A lot of people would have said you're top 5. Everybody would have said you're top 10. But with Laudrup, he was the best, and that's in an era with the likes of Hadji, Hullet, Rijkaard, Baggio, Romario. I think it's Laudrup. And that gives us our final then. The 1990s versus the 1980s. Now, goalkeeper. This is the final. Want to make these picks right. Rinat Dasiev or Peter Schmeichel in goal? Let's do a little bit more digging on Dasiev. We know Schmeichel's career. We know what he did in the 90s. Absolutely phenomenal. For Dasiev, it's less known, I think, by the general public, but 91 caps for the Soviet Union. Played for Spartak Moscow for most of the 80s. Then went to Sevilla. Best Soviet goalkeeper 6 times. Soviet Footballer of the Year. Widely regarded as the second best Russian goalkeeper ever after Lev Yashin. Incredible shot stopper. I would say better shot stopper than Schmeichel. Schmeichel's big thing was his presence. Dasiev wasn't as big. Schmeichel's other big thing was his ability to start counterattacks with the long throws. Dasiev was the goalkeeper that kind of began that trend. Both of them have been criticised as being overrated. Some people think Dasiev is overrated because he never left Russia until late in his career. I don't think that's a fair accusation, considering most Russians didn't leave during the 80s. They weren't allowed leave during the 80s. He was voted in the World 11 3 times. Peter Schmeichel was voted in a number of different teams. European Championship Team of the Year, UEFA Goalkeeper of the Year 3 times. I think Dasiev is probably the more rounded goalkeeper. Comfortable with the ball at his feet as well. I think he modernized goalkeeping. But he was also quite a safe goalkeeper. Like, you weren't seeing him... He wasn't a sweeper keeper. But in terms of being able to play with his feet, being able to... Even like the shot-stopping technique, having that confidence to save balls with one hand, whereas prior to that, keepers were always going to get 2 hands to the ball. Some of Peter Schmeichel's teammates have said he was overrated, which is also notable. Do you know what? We might come back to that. Right back, Thuram or Bergamy? I'm going to go Thuram. I'm going to go Thuram. As much as I love Paul McGrath, I can't make a case for him over Franco Baresi. So I'm going to go with Franco Baresi. I could have made a case with Shearia, but I still think it's probably Shearia No, it's probably McGrath, but I'll go with Shearer anyway. But it's Shearer over Kohler, and I'm going Shearer. Left back is undoubtedly Maldini. Midfield, I'm going to go with Diego over Figo, Mateus over Keane, Zidane versus Rijkaard is two completely different types of players, but Zidane was the better player. Laudrup or Zico? Laudrup or Zico? I come back to that one. R9 over Van Basten. He's probably the only striker I would put over Van Basten. Baggio or Platini? I think it's Platini. Baggio was incredible, but pre-Diego, Platini was the best player in the world. So I think it has to be Platini. That gives me 5 for the 80s and 4 for the 90s, with 2 positions undecided. One is left wing, the other is goalkeeper. I'm going to go Dasiev in goal, and I'm going to go Zico as the left winger. As much and all as I love Laudrup, and I think he was incredible, Zico was as well. And what Zico did for his national team, and even obviously at club level as well, I just think he didn't have as good a club career because he didn't play in Europe for the majority of it. But he was phenomenal for Brazil. He's World Player of the Year in 83. He was like, I think he's, you know, when people say Cristiano is the second best player, that is the best, second best player of all time. When you talk about generations and you compare, this generation, the best player is Messi, Cristiano's the second best. Have we ever had a generation where there's been a better second best player? I would say Zico is the reason that yes is the answer. I think Zico in the 80s, a better footballer than Cristiano. So I'm going to go with Zico, which means that the winner is the 1980s. Now it's a 7-4 win in the final. If I could rejig, I would rejig McGrath against Shearer just to get McGrath in, and it would make it 6-5, but it would still be the 1980s team. It would still be the 1980s team. Rinat Dasiev of the Soviet Union, Giuseppe Bergami of Italy, Franco Baresi of Italy, Gaetano Scirea of Italy, Andreas Brehme of Germany, who advances despite losing every head-to-head at left-back. Every one of them. He's the only player. Oh no, Bergami did as well. But with Bergami, it's really close. Like, you can make cases for Bergami, I think, against Carlos Alberto, against Jalma Santos, and against Lilian Thuram. And I think you could make a strong argument and probably win the argument that you go with Bergami, but I don't think you have any case with Andreas Brehme against Fischetti, Nilton Santos, or Maldini. I just don't think he's that level. I have him, I think, 10th all-time at left-back, and that's not including Nilton Santos. It doesn't include Mazzolini. It doesn't include pre-1970s players. So that alone would mean he's at best 12th. Whereas I think I have Bergami like 5th or 6th, 7th maybe. He's definitely in my top 10. I am like, and he's not 8, 9 or 10. I'd go Jalma Santos above him, just about. but he's still a top 10 right back of all time. Diego Maradona, Lothar Matthäus, Frank Rijkaard, Zico, Marco van Basten, and Michel Platini. The 1980s was the golden generation of football. I'll be back after the break. Right, welcome back. So, Manchester United are to make a decision before the end of this year as to whether or not they're going to build a new 100,000-seat stadium. The stadium would cost more than £2 billion and allegedly could take up to 6 years to build. They've put together a task force to assess the feasibility of a new stadium versus the redevelopment of the existing Old Trafford facility. They do want government funding to build a Wembley of the North, which is all just a bit wanky now to me. But I would say you just redevelop Old Trafford, surely. I mean, you've got one stand that could be torn down and expanded and rebuilt. You could fix the roof for the rest of it, and it would probably come in at about, 500 million, thereabouts, to upgrade all the different facilities, as opposed to paying this extravagant amount for a new stadium. I think one of the reasons they want to build a new stadium is because I think there'll be less pushback to them selling the naming rights to it. I think if it's a new stadium and doesn't have the Old Trafford moniker, I think it's easier to sell it to the fans that way. Rafael Varane has joined Como, managed by Cesc Fabregas, as a free agent. Man City were beaten 3-2 by AC Milan in a pre-season friendly. They were also beaten by Celtic in their first pre-season friendly. Celtic then hammered Chelsea by 4-1. An absolute walloping. It's very funny, though. What else do we have here? Emi Buendia made his return for Aston Villa from a torn ACL as Villa lost 4-1 to Columbus Crew. Liverpool have rejected bids for Wataru Endo and from Marseille, and for Sepp Vandenberg from PSV Eindhoven. Right, let's do the gossip then. We have 3 days. Right. Tottenham lead Arsenal and Liverpool in the race to sign Federico Chiesa. I could see him actually making some sense for Arsenal as a backup to Martinelli, or to put competition up for Martinelli, but he's not the same type of goal scorer that Martinelli is. And Arsenal don't have a ton of big-time goal scorers, and they kind of need Martinelli to be that for them. Newcastle are confident Anthony Gordon will remain at St James's Park. Eddie Howe has told Kieran Trippier that he wants him to stay at the club. West Ham are considering an improved offer for John Duran. Villa are holding out for 40 million. West Ham have already offered 30 million on a young player, maybe 35, and said, player, get it done. Manchester United are back in the race to sign Mazar Mazraoui. Apparently that deal is getting closer. Mazraoui may look for guarantees over playing time. United do have Delo at right back. Now, I understand that Mazraoui and Delo can play both sides, and they are concerned about Luke Shaw's fitness, but still, it doesn't seem like the right buy. Now, they might look at it and go, well, we start Delo and Shaw, and then Mazraoui is like the rotation piece on both sides. And similar to what I've said Brentford should do, buying someone like Walker Peters and having him and Rico Henry start, and both start, 26 games, and then have Aaron Hickey start the other 12 on either side. So he gets like 24 starts, or they could start 25, he could start 26, something like that. Maybe United do similar with Mazraoui, Delo and Shaw. Tottenham are in talks with Girona to sell Bryan Hill. I believe that one's going to be a loan with an option to buy. Manchester United discussed the possibility of swapping Aaron Wan-Bissaka for Denzel Dumfries. Apparently that didn't go anywhere. United are set to compete with Fulham and Chelsea for Trevoh Chalobah. Maybe, maybe not. Barcelona have reached an agreement in principle to sign Nico Williams on a 5-year deal with an option of an additional year. It is Nicolo Shearer, so it could be muck. He does put out a lot of muck, to be honest. LAFC have made progress in their talks to sign Atletico Madrid and France forward Antoine Griezmann. Arsenal are holding out for a fee of at least 42 million for Eddie Nketiah, which is laughable stuff. LAFC are also trying to sign Lewis O'Brien from Nottingham Forest. Man City see Jamal Musiala as a potential successor to Kevin De Bruyne. Bayern Munich have increased their offer for Jonathan Tah to €20 million plus 5 million in add-ons. I just don't understand that at all. Juventus are set to make an offer for Teon Koopmeiners. Dortmund have approached Man City over a deal for Jan Koto. That's been going on for a while. Chelsea are prepared to let 12 more players leave this summer after Malang Sarr's contract was ended to allow him to join Lens. Okay, that's Saturdays. Sundays, Calvin Phillips has told Man City he wants a permanent move away, with Everton and Villa considering a loan deal. I doubt Villa are interested, although a 6-month loan would be good because they're going to be without Boubacar Kamara for a few more months, so maybe that makes sense. Kelechi Iheanacho was close to joining Sevilla on a free. PSG are still working to sign Nico Williams. Villa are working to bring in Rafinha. That's interesting. Liverpool and Tottenham have joined Arsenal in the race to sign Victor Gyökeres. I have a tough time believing that either of them are in for him. Not that he's not good enough, but Liverpool, I don't think, will buy a striker, and Arsenal don't have that kind of money. He'd be a great fit for Tottenham. The mooted deal with Aston Villa and Atletico Madrid for João Felix is not done yet, with no formal proposal sent to the Spanish club. Villa want Atleti to lower their asking price to about 50 to 60 million. I'm not sure how Atleti could ask for more, considering it's not like he's been a success for them. Newcastle will have to pay £34 million to sign Malik Thiaw. Arsenal and Chelsea are set to battle for Julian Alvarez. I highly doubt it. Arsenal will step up their attempts to sign Mikel Moreno once Ricardo Calafiori is confirmed. Has that been confirmed yet? Romano's been giving up-to-the-minute updates on Calafiori. And been wrong so many times, it's not even funny. But yeah, it is done. It is done. He has signed and has been unveiled and has gone to America to meet his teammates. Looks like Emile Smith-Rowe is leaving Arsenal to go to Fulham. So 1 out, 1 in. Money's similar enough. Like I said, Arsenal, they don't have huge amounts of cash to throw around, so they're having to sell in order to buy. Monaco have agreed a deal for Lamine Camara. You've all heard me talk about Lamine Camara. I think he is going to be an absolute star. I think Monaco is a good move for him. Leicester and Southampton are interested in bringing in Ben Doak if Liverpool are willing to loan him. Talks between Manchester United and Bayern Munich are ongoing between Manchester United and Bayern Munich for deals for Matthias de Ligt and Nazar Mazraoui. Liverpool are still keen on Anthony Gordon. It's the Sunday World. It's Kevin Palmer. It's crap. Girona and Tottenham are finalising a deal for Bryan Hill. And Jean-Claude Todibo wants to join Juventus from Nice. On to Mondays then. Manchester United have set an asking price of 50 million for Jadon Sancho, who, according to this garbage outlet, has agreed terms with PSG. Tough time believing that one. Nico Williams has made a decision on his career, but doesn't say what the decision is. Manchester United want to sign Nordi Madeki. Oh, this would be if Sancho were to go to PSG. Nordi Madeki, Milan Skriniar or Manuel Ugarte could come to the way. Well, for Ugarte, United would have to send money, I'd imagine. Skriniar would be about a straight swap. They'd probably get 30 million and Madeki. Or, not Madeki, Mukelele. Mukelele, I was thinking Noni Madeki. Mukelele for Mukiele. Mukiele is his name, not Mukelele. Mukiele, I don't know what's wrong with me. West Ham have opened talks with United over Wan-Bissaka. Mazraoui, boring. Chelsea want Chiesa. Genoa are pushing to sign David De Gea. I'd be very happy with that, to be honest. But the salary expectations are proving it's something. Nobody signed you last summer. Nobody. So have yourself a bit of cop on. Aston Villa have submitted a loan offer for Calvin Phillips. It's Football Insider, so I doubt it. But like I said, could make sense given Kamara's out for a while. Barcelona are unlikely to sign João Cancelo because of Man City's 25 million asking price. Everton have agreed a deal worth about 22 million to sign Jake O'Brien from Lyon. Crystal Palace's Jezrin Raksaki prefers a move to Southampton over Leeds to someone. I assume that will be a loan. West Ham are willing to meet Monaco's 35 million euro price tag for Youssouf Fofana. Though apparently he said no to them and wants to go to Milan. Milan are also closing in on a deal for Emerson Royale. I'm not sure why, but they are. That's what they're doing. Arsenal are in pole position to sign Victor Gyökeres, other than the fact that they don't have the money to do so. Right, folks, that's going to be me for today. I most likely won't be here tomorrow, but we'll definitely be back on Wednesday. So have yourselves a good couple of days. Bye-bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.